moved from White Point Gardens to the Old City Jail. This is the month of October, and a lot going on along the lines of what people would call scary
Halloween festivities.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And so we decided we'd come down here. I'm here with Mike Bender, my good friend and historian.
Yes.
Teacher at Goose Creek High School. And we're talking about this Old City Jail. It's probably one of the scariest buildings I have ever seen. If a building could talk, this one would probably start out by saying boo.
Yes. Yeah, Steve. Charleston's considered the third most haunted city in the United States of America, and they say that this is the most haunted building in the city of Charleston. Like you said, it was at one time, Old City Jail was at one time a prison for a few years there, and it was even half prison, half insane asylum. Also, supposedly the history behind her is real. The ghost story, that's up to people, but also one of Charleston's most notorious killers, Lavinia Fisher, was housed in this very building just right above us. And according to the story, Lavinia Fisher and her husband John Fisher owned an inn called the 6 Mile Wayfarer's House, and people would stop in. It was literally 6 miles north of Charleston. That's why it was called the 6 Mile House. And supposedly a lot of people...
Hold on, that would be somewhere today, we're talking North Charleston-ish.
I would say, yeah, give or take. But a lot of people checked in though, and they didn't check out. So according to the legend, Lavinia Fisher, matter of fact, a lot of what I'm telling you actually isn't just legend; it's factual stuff. Because she was the first woman ever executed in the history of not just Charleston, but the history of our country. And supposedly, people would travel through. A lot of times, Lavinia would sit out on the porch. They said she was a very attractive woman. She was very charming. So a lot of the travelers, especially the males, would, they're almost to Charleston. They're going to stop and stay the night and head on into Charleston the next morning. And they would stop in and engage Lavinia in conversation. And she was, again, very charming. And she also would ask them specific questions. In our minds, seemed very innocent questions, but in her mind, they were for a purpose. Because not only did she kill people, but she also robbed them. So she would pick people who were a little on the wealthier side, people that she knew somebody would not come looking for them. And so she would, sit them down and say, well, where are you from? The farther away, the better. She might ask, did you leave any family behind? Trying to find out if anybody would come looking for them. She would also say, ask them what was their business, why were they on this trip, and that was to see how much money they might have or what they might be traveling with that was materialistic, that might be valuable, that she could rob. And she was also a good cook, so seemed like a perfect woman, right? A good cook. And she would sit down, you'd have a great meal with Lavinia and her husband John, and then she'd give you some tea. And there was the problem for most people that didn't check out, is she would put poison in the tea, white oleander, and supposedly she would poison the tea. At the end of the meal, you'd have your tea, head on upstairs to bed, and you wouldn't wake up. And John's job was to dispose of the body. Supposedly, he would go up there and check in the middle of the night. If you did not so happen to die, he would take a knife up there and finish you off and make sure. Supposedly, rumors started. People were disappearing. The authorities went out to the 6 Mile House, and again, Lavinia was so charming in her community. She was very popular, well known. Everybody was like, no way that she could do this. So the authorities left. Well, and then the rumors continued, and finally they got to the bottom of it, and they realized that John and Lavinia Fisher were serial killers. They were murdering people. They found bodies all around their property.
This was the 1800s, right?
Yeah, probably early 1800s, and she was brought to Charleston, and she stayed in the Old City Jail here. She was put in a cell here at the Old City Jail, awaiting trial. And her trial was all in the newspapers. People traveled from other states even to come cover that trial because it was a big deal. Yeah. And they knew the possibility of, she probably would be sentenced to execution. It would be a first time, for a woman to be executed. Supposedly then, according to the legend, some of this is factual, some of it gets mixed in, with people that, as stories go, they get exaggerated, but according to the legend, she was found guilty. Her husband John was found guilty, and they did sentence her and John to execution by hanging. And according to the legend, they gave her one request. And it's kind of an odd request at first. You think, well, what is that request for? She requested that her husband be executed first. So yeah, it's kind of like, what? You know, but there's a reason behind everything that Lavinia Fisher does is manipulative. And so she requested that her husband be executed first because there was this unwritten code, kind of this, it was not written down, it was an unwritten understanding that if a woman had been found guilty of a crime, that if a single man in the audience, a single man in the crowd, would raise his hand and take her as his wife and say, I will keep her on the straight and narrow and she will not do this again, then they actually at times, not always, but at times would let that woman go free. Now this was a big case, so I mean, we're talking murder, serial killer material here, so Lavinia though had that in the back of her mind, so check it out. Her husband, John, he gets hanged first.
And now she's a single woman.
Now she's a single woman. There you go. She's a widow. She also asked to be executed in her wedding dress.
Oh.
So there she was even kind of pointing that out even more so to the crowd. Unfortunately, in this case, Lavinia's plan for her, unfortunately, it didn't work out. They say she stepped up and she just knew that some man was going to claim her and she would be set free. But according to the legend, every guy in the house kind of put his head down. They were like, we don't want any part of this.
Well, yeah.
And at that moment, when Lavinia Fisher realized that her plan was not going to work, that was when her true colors showed. They say, the legend goes, even the guys writing about it, the reporters that were there say that just this evil, creepy look came over her face. And she looked out amongst the crowd and she said to all of them, if any of you got a message for the devil, tell me now, because I'm going to see him. And with that, they put the noose around Lavinia's neck, pulled the lever. Lavinia was executed. And according to the legend, again, if you believe in the ghosts, you know, she still haunts this old city jail. They say that in the cell where she was housed, if you look in the window on certain evenings, you can see a white figure walking by the window, and they say that's Lavinia Fisher in her wedding dress, the ghost of Lavinia Fisher with her wedding dress on. So there you go. Happy Halloween. Boo, as Steve said.
There are tours of this building. You can check with Bulldog Tours. They
Yes.
do tours late in the evening.
Yes, I've been on one. It's fantastic. So.
Yeah. And come check it out for yourself.